guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you a video today to talk about and share my opinions on the Laceless Adidas concept boot that was recently unveiled and supposedly will be making its way to the public sometime in 2016. Now, this has been kind of just a big marketing ploy in that Adidas is kind of teasing what's coming in the future, obviously next year, with this laceless technology. They didn't specify that it would be exactly the shoe that they're showing us today, but they're saying that laceless technology is coming, and it's going to be something like this. It's gotten people very, very excited, which understandably so. It's kind of cool when companies show us what's coming in the future. And Adidas has been doing this a lot with these concept shoes. We saw the PrimeKnit FS. That never really came to be. That was a really unusual shoe. And this shoe that they've just showed now seems to be kind of an evolution of that PrimeKnit FS that honestly, I doubt we will ever see make its way to the public, but only time will tell. So if you guys aren't familiar with the shoe that I'm talking about, it was obviously in the thumbnail of the video you just clicked on, but I'll flash an image on screen as well just so you can get a better look at it. The first thing that I want to talk about in regards to this shoe is just laceless technology in general, because I think people who are perhaps newer to the whole soccer cleat scene may look at this and say, oh my gosh, it's revolutionary, it's something that's never been done before, and that's not necessarily true. If you go back several years now, Lotto, which is obviously not the most prominent brand anymore, featured or had the zero gravity line, which is still around, but it's no longer a laceless shoe. But the first zero gravity models, completely laceless, and they were the first to do it. And in all honesty, the shoes were okay, but the whole laceless system just didn't really work. The problem with it was the issue of fit. Because the shoe didn't have any laces, you had to basically have the perfect shaped foot to match the shape of that shoe in order to have a good, comfortable fit that you would want from an expensive high-end shoe. And the laceless shoes that Lotto had were quite expensive, the most expensive shoes that money could buy at that point in time. So the end result was definitely not the greatest shoe. I did actually wear a couple of the different zero gravity models, and like I said, they were okay, but they didn't really fit me perfectly, and for that reason the experience was not as good as what I could get from a thin synthetic shoe that had laces. It's just that simple. Adidas themselves also ventured into the laceless upper type of system with several of their Tune-It uppers. So for those that remember the F50 lines that did have the Tune-It system, where the upper and the sole and the studs were all separate pieces from each other, there was a laceless variation of the F50 Tune-It upper that you could buy. I never actually wore those, but again, it's one of those things that was fairly limited, didn't stick around for very long, mainly because it wasn't very popular. So I can only assume it wasn't as good as the laced uppers. But if you have any experience with that, leave that down below in the comment section. I'd be curious to hear what your experience was with that particular laceless shoe from Adidas. So several years later now, because that was quite a while ago, we're now being shown this shoe, another laceless boot from Adidas, which is granted a lot different than what we've seen in the past from Adidas as well as Lotto, in that obviously it's a knitted upper. They haven't specified PrimeKnit, but I would assume it is their PrimeKnit technology on the shoe. Now, before we get into kind of judging the performance of the shoe, because I don't want to talk too much about that, because obviously I haven't worn them, nobody really has, so nobody knows how these things actually fit, feel, and perform. But those are really the three characteristics that I'm very worried about when you talk about a laceless shoe, because the only laceless shoe I've worn, the Lottos, that was the issue, and I see this being perhaps even a bigger issue here when you implement a knitted upper. So when you talk about a laceless shoe, you have to consider what the benefits would actually be. And really, if you think about it, there aren't really any benefits to eliminating the laces. Yes, you don't have laces on the shoe, which technically removes some bulk, but the amount of bulk that a lace actually takes up is extremely minimal. So it's not something that, in my opinion, is going to make or break your experience with any soccer shoe. So to take away the laces, you're not really shaving weight, you're hardly shaving any bulk. And if anything, when it comes to weight, you're actually adding weight to add reinforcement to kind of make up for the structure that the lace would normally provide. When you look at pretty much every soccer shoe on the market right now, all the structure is built into the sides of the upper. A great example, even on one-piece shoes, would be the Superfly 4 from Nike, as well as the Magista Obra. You could technically wear those shoes without the laces, but what you'll find is that the sides of the shoe with the Brio cables and all the structure internally, they don't come together, they don't hold your foot in place until they're put under tension by the laces. That's why the laces are there in the first place. So you're going to notice that if you do a sprint to make a quick change of direction without laces in the shoes, there is going to be a ton of rollover, whereas when you have laces in, you pull them nice and tight, the shoe's under tension and it's kind of hugging your foot really nicely. You're going to find that when you make that quick cut change of direction, it's going to be a lot more responsive. Your foot's not going to slide around. And again, that is really all down to the laces holding everything in place. So when you don't have that system, which is what they have right here in this laceless Adidas boot, that's something that really concerns me, because there's nothing through the middle of the shoe that's holding the two sides together. And again, we haven't seen the inside. They haven't really specified if there is some other system aside from laces underneath. It very well looks like there could be, just based on the overall shape and aesthetic of the shoe. But like I said, if they were just to leave it an elasticated knitted material across the top of the foot and then have all the structure in the sides, you're just not going to have the two sides coming together, and it's going to make for a shoe that I would think is going to lack stability and just roll over and just not feel right when you're making quick changes of direction, not to mention not providing good lockdown. And again, it doesn't have any laces, so the shape of the shoe is very much predetermined. You can't tighten it around your foot, which again is a major flaw of the laceless system. It almost means that your foot has to perfectly match the shape of the shoe, not only in terms of just general fit on the inside, but also sizing. For those of you guys that like to wear your shoes with a lot of extra space or leaving extra growing room in your shoes, something with laceless technology or without laces period, that's going to be an issue for you, because the concept of a laceless boot is to have that perfect fit. And you're not going to be able to modify it once the shoe is actually on your foot, because it doesn't have any laces. So if they don't fit you perfectly from the get-go, if you have that extra space, lockdown, stability, all of those elements are going to suffer. So that's something that really concerns me about bringing laceless technology back, and it's the main reason why it never really caught on in the first place. So it's not necessarily lighter, it's not necessarily eliminating any bulk. It really does create some complications when it comes to fit. And the third thing I wanted to mention is in regards to the actual knitted material for the upper. Previous laceless shoes, whether it be from Adidas or Lotto, were made from fairly firm synthetic materials. So they were a little bit difficult to get on, they were really difficult to get off, but once your foot was actually in there, at least the material had some hard structure to it, just because it was a firmer synthetic material. With these shoes, they appear to be prime knit, and if you look at the knitted kind of structure of the majority of the upper, aside from the top of the foot, which appears to be elasticated, the majority of the upper looks to be a very similar weave to what we currently see on the recently released Ace 15 Plus Prime Knit, which if you've seen my review video on that shoe, it is not the most structured material. So when you combine no laces with a fairly soft, fairly flimsy knitted upper, it's just, in my opinion, something that seems like a recipe for disaster. Again, I don't really want to judge these shoes prior to actually trying them out, but the laceless concept with a knitted upper, while it might sound like a good idea at first, the end result is something that honestly I question a lot until I've actually had the chance to wear them. But as of right now, like I said, I have my really big doubts in regards to how this shoe is actually going to perform. As far as the cut is concerned, it does appear to be kind of slightly higher cut than the average shoe. It's got a straight cut at the top, which is kind of unusual. It's not a mid-cut shoe like like what Nike's doing with the Superfly, the Obra, and the Hypervenom Phantom, where it kind of has a normal cut and then there's a collar extension. This almost goes right to the top and then cuts straight, which is kind of unusual. Looks a little bit strange to me, but again, until I've actually worn them, I can't really comment too much about it. Again, the main concern for me is just not having the right fit, not having the amount of structure that's necessary, not bringing the two sides of the shoe together once the shoe is actually on your foot. And of course, sizing is just going to be a major problem with this laceless system, because you have to have the right size in order to have the right fit. And if the shoes are too big, you're just going to have issues with lockdown. It's not going to fit the way they're supposed to. The idea is to have a seamless sensation, kind of a sock-like sensation in terms of how it fits, which is kind of why they're eliminating the laces. But like I said, I really don't think that the laces themselves take away from the sock-like feel of the shoe. Anyone who's worn a pair of Superflies or a pair of Obras is probably going to make the argument that they feel pretty natural on your feet once you get used to them and once they're broken in. So I really don't think that taking the laces away is going to enhance that feel in any way. It's just going to make it more difficult to add structure to the shoe, which is really what I think Adidas is going to struggle with this particular shoe. So in terms of the benefits of laceless technology, I really don't think that there are any. This is, in my opinion, kind of a gimmicky thing at this point until it's given to the public and kind of given to guys like me who are going to really test these things out and share honest, brutal opinions about these things. Like I said, I have my doubts with laceless technologies in general, and that's not just because Adidas is doing it. It'd be the same case if Nike was doing it. It's just something that honestly, yeah, it might be the way of the future, but as of right now, I just don't see laces as kind of an obsolete type of system to keep your shoes tight. So that is my thoughts basically on the 2016 laceless boot from Adidas. I'm excited to try it out, but like I said, I definitely have my concerns. Let me know your opinions on it down below in the comment section, though. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think. We'll get a bit of a discussion going down below. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.